What's up, everybody? Welcome into Tom Curran's Patriots Talk podcast. It is the aftermath. Patriots triumph over the Miami Dolphins and young Skylar Thompson at the end. With the win, of course, as you know, their playoff hopes are still alive. They are 8-8. They get the Buffalo Bills next week. They are now moved into that final position in the playoff standings. Philly, what was the tenor like in the locker room?
Tenor in the locker room, I would say, is hopeful. It's all you can ask for, I think, going into this last game, this last week of the season, given how they've played and how inconsistent they've been and how non-complimentary they've been. I think the fact that the offense did pick it up a little bit at the end of the game, they put together that 89-yard touchdown drive to help give them a little bit of a cushion. Obviously, they opened the game well. Those drives really matter, and they've been so elusive. But I talked to a bunch of defensive players about how important those are, just to give them the break, just to allow them to sort of collect their thoughts and find out what the opposition is doing, to be able to spend some time on the bench as opposed to just waiting for a 3 and out before they have to get back out there, chug a little water, and go. So, I think there's a little bit of hope associated not only with the opportunity to make the playoffs next week if they win this game, but also a little bit of hope that maybe they're as late in the season as it is, maybe they're improving. And I had an interesting conversation with Matthew Slater about that, but that's sort of where their heads are at right now.
2-4 in their last 6 since Thanksgiving. And they go up 16-14 in this game with another defensive touchdown on the pick 6 to Teddy Bridgewater. And because of that pick 6 and Teddy Bridgewater's involvement, enter Skylar Thompson. So there are, as usual, caveats and asterisks. And if you want to roll your eyes about the execution, you absolutely can do that. But extra football remains in play. And you had a team that had a collection of defensive backs on the field today who were still introducing themselves to their teammates. So it's, once again, the Alonzo Mourning gif, So, I mean, there is a point at which we got to get over the fact that the product looks hard to swallow relative to expectations and get swept up in the idea that these guys in that locker room are about to attain, through no fault of their own, they're about to attain what they show up at the beginning of the year to get to.
Yeah, and the teams that Slater referenced are interesting because they both have connections to him. But his dad played on a 9-7 team that eked into the postseason decades ago and made it to a Super Bowl. The 2011 Giants won 9 games. They were a 9-7 team and ended up beating the Patriots in the Super Bowl. Now, he's not saying that they've got designs on making it to the Super Bowl and winning the thing. But I think he's saying even if you improve late, you'll still take that improvement. And so I think they're just trying to grasp onto any hope that improvement is actually truly going to be there. The defense is good. It's just, can they get enough from these other units? I think the defense was a little sour after last week's loss to the Bengals. I talked to one defensive leader, said, we need all 3 units to play well to win. It's a team game. And the reality is they've had one unit play well consistently this year. So they know the score. They know how they have to win. The formula for them, I guess, is to score defensively every single week. And I've said that's not a sustainable formula. I guess it's kind of sustainable for this team because they're setting all kinds of records with these defensive touchdowns. But there remains hope. And for guys like Matthew Slater, Devin McCourty, guys whose careers might be over whenever the season ends, I think that means a lot. And I think because it means a lot to those guys, it means a lot to their teammates because their teammates respect them so much. So there's a little bit of playing for that veteran contingent that's at play here right now as well.
Was this win a result of a gritty, gutty, plucky team doing the things that matter late? Or was this taking advantage of a bad team that has been sliding, has now lost 5 in a row, the Miami Dolphins, that ended up without its backup quarterback at the end and was down to a third-string rookie? I mean, what is the reason the Patriots won the football game?
I think the reason they won is because they have a good defense. I got to give them a lot of credit. Backups or no backups, Tyreek Hill at 55 yards today. Like in the Patriots, all their corners were hurt. And they had, Tay Hayes getting real snaps in this game. So I start there because I think they made a real impact on the game, and injuries along the offensive line is something that Miami's dealing with. Everybody's dealing with that stuff. So the third string quarterback thing is hard to get around. I mean, it just the way the season has gone for them. They've faced how many now? Backups and third stringers. I looked at Teddy Bridgewater as a legit backup, and I think he might be if we were to list him out, Tom. I think he would be for you for sure because you're a Teddy Bridgewater fan. I think he's a top 32 quarterback. Like, I think he's one of the best backups in the league. But once you get down to that third guy, like then it becomes almost impossible for them to come back.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't going to caveat. They picked 6, Teddy Bridgewater, fantastic defensive play, great hands by Duggar, another excellent return. And he punctuates it with that stiff arm on Teddy Bridgewater. But at 16-14 there, had Teddy Bridgewater stayed in the game and the Patriots turned them away and won the game, whatever, 19-14 or however, I would never be caveating it. But to win by the margin they did, and to need that onside kick recovery because Skylar Thompson did cobble together a drive, it does leave you with that they're just not. They're going. They might go to the playoffs, but they are not what we would conventionally call a playoff level team.
Wouldn't you call that scoring drive sort of like a
kill the clock drive?
It was like a last-ditch effort, kind of like almost not garbage time per se, but I don't know. I guess I don't give them full credit for that touchdown drive. I mean, even with Bridgewater out there, I think in part because the Dolphins called a very weird game. Now, I think they're as scared of their offensive line as the Patriots are of theirs. And they hardly let Bridgewater do anything, Tom, early in this game. They came out and they tried to run a bunch of receivers on the field early. They had 5 plays and a punt. And then 20 of their next 30 plays were with either 2 backs or 2 tight ends or both on the field, not at all stressing the position group on the New England sideline that, in my opinion, needed to be stressed. Those cornerbacks, they should have had 4 receivers on the field, not 2, for the entirety of that first half. And Teddy Bridgewater's under center and handing it off on first and second down. I mean, it just tells you what they thought, I think, of their offensive line or Teddy Bridgewater. I don't know. They just didn't trust their offense to throw the ball at all, and it played right into the hands of the Patriots, who were dealing without a lot of corners.
Building off of that, the Patriots, so often we've seen this season, seem to be afraid of what the results could be. It's like Murphy's Law. Whatever can go wrong will go wrong if we let this play out. And I look at that 4th and 4. Well, it might not have been a 4th and 4, but it was a 4th down late in the game where Mac took a sack. Matt Castle described it in the postgame as it was a 1 receiver route, and they were just, if that look wasn't there, they were just going to basically take the sack. Mac didn't have a choice. The sack was coming anyway. But to me, they don't know how they want to attack, and they're unsure, I think, not just because of the coaching, but because of the performance and execution level that they often get.
I also think they have a hard time adjusting, and they didn't say that after the game, but what they did say was that the Dolphins defense changed. They went down the field. They had some help penalties on the Dolphins end of things that helped them out, but they went down the field, scored a touchdown that first drive of the game. It looked pretty good. They were throwing the ball down the field. Tyquan Thornton, was that the drive? Was it the first drive? Tyquan Thornton had the long catch?
Yep. Had the long catch on the sideline, then the tiptoe touchdown on the inside.
Right. And they end up, getting a defensive hold. They got a DPI on a, so they were helped out, but they were putting it in the air and they were taking risks, which I wrote before the game. I think it's something you have to do. Why not? Give it a shot. Then the Dolphins defense changed. They played more zone. They blitzed less. And the Patriots offense absolutely went in the tank. I think they scored 3 points in 6 drives. And I need to tally up the yardage and the yards per play, but it was probably, I don't know, a shade over 2 yards per play, 3 yards per play.
At one point, they had run 16 plays after their first drive of the second half. They had 10 plays on their first drive and 16 plays in the next 5 drives, I believe. That's not what you're looking for.
That to me is, we have an idea of what these guys like to do. They came out, they executed, and good for them. They changed what they did, and they had no idea from there. Like that, again, I think it just speaks to the experience level of the coaching staff you're dealing with on that side of the ball, to be able to adjust, to be able to flip back to a game plan that they used earlier in the season. Okay, hey, the Bills gave us a lot of zone in the second half of their game. This is what we should have done then. I don't think they have the ability to do that. It's why I'm not confident in this offense moving forward. But they did have an 89-yard drive, Tom. They put together an 89-yard drive to kill some clock at the end of the game.
And you throw that one in, you throw last week's drive that ended with the Kendrick Bourne touchdown in. There are now 3 drives that I can point to in the last 2 weeks. And this is the epitome of, looking hard for the silver lining. 3 drives in the last 2 weeks where you say that was a pretty functional offensive drive there by a team that has had too few of them. I also thought Mac Jones' comportment and leadership was much better today, not just in the post game, obviously, actually least important was his post game podium demeanor. I thought that was good, but I thought his in-game demeanor was way better in that there were quick sacks, there were breakdowns, there were timeouts burned, but he kept himself checked in the right way, I thought.
Yeah, and correct me if I'm wrong, but has it been 2 weeks that we've gone now without any of the on-the-field gesticulation? I don't
what happened against Cincy? Did anything happen against Cincy?
Cincy. I don't remember it happening against
Did they blunder deep down, or that was the Raiders game where they went south?
Right.
No, it might be 2 weeks in a row of good behavior.
So maybe
they won't have to call home. They're not going to have to call home. Remember when I'm going to call your parents. It's not going to happen.
Was he spoken to? Was someone? I was talking to someone today who's very familiar with the last iteration of the Patriots and those championship teams, and even briefly, really the first group. And we were just talking about the leadership on this team, and I think they have tremendous leadership in guys like Slater and McCourty and David Andrews. I think Dietrich Wise is turning into a good leader for the defense. But they also don't necessarily have the kind of leader that is unafraid to chap your ass and to go to somebody like Mac Jones and say, hey, cut the bleep.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to do that. Shut the bleep up. We're going to be fine. They as great as Slater or McCourty are, that's just not their style. And maybe that style doesn't necessarily work anymore. But what this person was suggesting to me was, if things get a little sideways and you don't have that guy, sometimes that guy's kind of necessary. A Mike Vrabel type, right? Vrabel wasn't afraid to say anything to anybody. He would let you know. Like Brewski, McGinnis, these guys were disciplinarians inside the locker room. And you have emotional leaders and positive leaders right now. I don't know if you have that other type of leader. And maybe that's something they've lacked a little bit this year. Yeah. Although maybe somebody said something to Mac the last 2 weeks that have got him to change.
And Mac is so high strung. And I think that all the players and teammates realize he's in a bad position, that maybe there's a level of empathy with his situation where, he's flipping up and I might too. But it did become counterproductive. And I think that's one good thing. We talked about what are the things that Mac Jones can build on at the beginning of the year. I said, hopefully he's more resilient by the end of the year. Maybe this shows that. The other thing that it shows is his improvement level in terms of interceptions. Since that Bears pick, how many horrendous picks has he had that are just on him? Not many. I think there was an Arizona pick. Maybe. But he has done an outstanding job taking care of the football since that, which shows his coachability. His misses downfield are in the right spot. Unfortunately, some of them are off the grid, bouncing on the sidelines and beyond. But, he's done a good job in being coachable in that way, I think, too.
Yeah, he's got just 2 interceptions since week 8 when, so the week after that Bears loss. And so it's, 7 touchdowns, 2 picks in that time span, quarterback rating of 90. Yards per attempt of just 6.6, but they've been so conservative over that time. I think that kind of helped get the reins on the turnover issue, but it also helped them stay in the bottom of the league when it comes to offensive efficiency. So, again, I thought today, at least early, they did a pretty good job of striking the balance that I thought they needed of, okay, we do need to occasionally push the ball down the field like we did in the second half last week against the Bengals, because that kind of in some ways got us back into the game, but they still threw that. They threw a little RPO screen out to the side just for 3 yards, and they did some of their middle of the field stuff, but they also threw that it looked almost like a wheel route to Tyquan Thornton down the sideline. They threw a comeback route along the sideline that led to a defensive pass interference. So it doesn't all have to be screens. It doesn't all have to be draws. And you don't have to be Bruce Arians' offense, chuck and duck, but you do have to be able to mix some of that other stuff in, even though you have a backup right tackle. Everybody in the league is dealing with a backup offensive lineman. It shouldn't excuse, your ultra conservative approach for the better part of 2 months when he was near the bottom of the league in terms of his passing depth down the field.
Can the Patriots play a smart game, regardless of whether or not they can keep up with Buffalo? Critical penalties like the Brendan Schooler one on that field goal, the punt early on, 4th down, went from 4th and 6 to 4th and 1, and the Dolphins end up converting it. Trent Brown with another false start penalty puts you in 1st and 15. You're behind the sticks. Boom. Timeout before a touchdown today with Tyquan Thornton wide open. The timeout gets called. They still do get the touchdown, but can they play a smart game? Are they closing in on intelligence yet, situationally?
Well, it's hard to say yes after you lay out the number of mistakes. Now, my question is, were the mistakes down? There's 3 there.
Kind of.
I think they were kind of down.
Penalties weren't that bad.
You only had one really atrocious special teams mistake, although I thought the punting game was just – there was nothing good about it. You're either shanking it 35 yards or you're booming it into the end zone. No in between. Not a single punt inside.
Nobody's having a Pilates party.
Inside the 20-yard line out of 5 punts. So maybe they're getting there. I'd have to really get a feel for like the percentage of plays that ended up being mental mistakes versus not. But that felt like more of a professional operation. The timeout I'm actually okay with. I'm okay with it. It's the red zone. They end up going 2 for 2 in the red zone. You want to make sure you're on top of it. If you're going to use it there. Don't use it because you get 12 guys on the field, or don't use it because you can't figure out how to sub defensively. Like, I'm okay with it in that situation.
Okay. All right. Let's move on from this Miami game and look forward to Buffalo. Patriots will be an underdog. If they lose that game, can they get in the postseason? Yeah, they sure can. 11% chance, according to the 538 website. Here's how it would happen. The Jets go ahead and beat the Dolphins in Week 18. Then the Titans lose to the Jaguars. So Dolphins and Titans have to lose. The Raiders and Steelers lose either of their final 2 games, and those games are in progress right now. That could be checked off by the end of today. So if the Patriots, they get those 2. If they get the Raiders loss, they get the Steelers loss. The Patriots would then really only need losses by the Titans and the Jets next week, and they would be in, even if they lose to Buffalo. So it's not that far-fetched. Is it?
It's really not. I'm looking at the trusty538.com NFL predictor site right now.
Yeah.
And if we go ahead and give the Steelers and Raiders losses for this week, which by the time people are listening to this, maybe that has already happened. But if the Steelers and Raiders lost this week, week 17, even if the Patriots lose to Buffalo in the season finale, they have a 26% chance of making the postseason. And so, again, you're rooting for the way you put it is
Dolphins and Titans going to lose.
Right. You want to be rooting for the Jaguars and the Dolphins. Or, sorry, the Jets.
Be a Jets fan. Be a Jaguars fan. I think everybody's a Jaguars fan deep down right now.
Be a Jaguars fan, be a Jets fan. And
Phil,
root against whoever's playing against the Steelers, just in case.
Skylar Thompson, Sam Ellinger, Zach Wilson 2 times, Mitch Trubisky. These
Jared
are some
Goff.
of the names.
Jacoby Brissett.
Brissett and Jared Goff. Those are some of the names who the Patriots have victimized this year. And Teddy Bridgewater. I'm not going to leave out my guy, Ted. And Colt McCoy. Also
your
complicit.
guy.
Yeah, you're right. I love me some backups. Not a single win over what we would call an upper tier quarterback, even though Jared Goff sometimes sniffs around the hindquarters of it for small stretches of time. Can they beat Josh Allen?
I don't think they can beat the Bills. Can they beat Josh Allen? Their defense, I think, is pretty good, Tom. So, I think they can slow down Josh Allen, and they might get some weather up in Buffalo. It's actually looking pretty nice as of right now, according to the forecast, but maybe you get a little weather. And honestly, the reason why I think you want to at least be going for the postseason is because of the unlikely nature of a lot of these games that we've already seen. Tua gets hurt last week and the Packers win. That was a game that I think a lot of people anticipated a bad Packers team this year, at least, would lose. Quarterback gets hurt. Injuries happen. So it's not impossible that the Patriots beat the Buffalo Bills. Josh Allen has been prone to make a mistake or two or three in certain games this year. He absolutely owns the Patriots right now, it feels like, as does that entire team. Matthew Slater said it today. They are the beasts. They are the beasts of the East right now. So, so the division goes through them. I think they're a great team still, even if they are a little flawed. So I'm not going to be picking the Patriots to beat them, but it is possible for them to beat them.
Got to play it in the teens. They will have to play it in the teens because I don't see them getting 20 plus with their offense. Although you never know. They don't have to do it with their offense. They can get a return. Maybe they can get a return and get themselves into the 20s. Phil Perry. Perfect. The game plan will be on Monday. No, it's the breakdown. The breakdown's Monday. Game plan Wednesday. Quick slants Tuesday. John Henry, Happy New Year to you. Happy New Year to everybody out there. There's new life in the new year for the New England Patriots.